Welcome to the Chief Aim podcast. This is your weekly dose of real experiences, insights, strategies, and action steps for entrepreneurs who want to build and are building something incredible. Welcome back to the Chief Aim podcast. I am Jason Graystone.
And I'm Sebastian Bates.
And Seb, it's been a while. I know we recorded a few of these episodes, but you sodded off on holiday for about 2 months. What happened?
We should actually do an episode about that, right? To call it lifestyle design. Maybe the one after this one.
It was pretty good. It was watching you swan around, go over. You did actually go over to England, then you went to Italy, right? And Tuscany, is it? And
I just lived the Sicilian life for a bit. You know, went to England for a few weeks, and then Italy for a few weeks. We actually got stuck in Sicily because the airport burned down. That sounds like a really bad excuse,
Really?
doesn't it? Yeah, it sounds like a really bad excuse. People were messaging me asking me when I'm back for work, and I was like, I was planning on going on Monday, but the airport's burned down, so I'm gonna have to extend.
It sounds like the most terrible excuse.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's an extreme excuse. It's hard to make something like that up, isn't it?
Well, it's good to have you back, mate. We're going to go on strong. So whilst you've been swanning around in Europe,
you've been swanning around on YouTube.
Yeah, we got the old plaque. Oh, the plaque here, right? We hit 100,000. I think we're on 125,000 now. But what's come out of the back of that has really sparked some demand for analysis from our business on an internal point of view, because we've actually learned quite a lot over the last few months about what we need to do in our own business. But it's also sparked a lot of conversations from people asking me how to do it, like how to blow up. And it always, like, you know yourself, it's always funny when people come to you when they see, what was it Daniel Priestley said to me once? He said, no one wants to talk to you. People only want to talk to you after you're driving the Ferrari or something. And it's so true. It's like people want to talk to you about how you blew up, but in actual fact, it's like years of tweaking and building, and then when all the pieces and the stars align, kind of thing, and it slots in place, that's when you're able to really blow up. It's like capitalization.
They just want to hear about the overnight success, right? But the reality of the overnight success is it happens overnight after like 6 to 10 years of grafting away at one art form and trying to perfect it, right? Yeah.
Exactly. But I think it makes for a good conversation, because we'll talk about some of what we've learned behind it, and how we've been able to monetize it so greatly. Because there's loads of people who have like viral videos, have millions of views, and they don't actually make any money. And you know, I've seen that happen for influencers. I've seen it happen for businesses. And although you get the YouTube ad rev and stuff, which in this particular video is at about 30 grand at the moment, which is pretty good.
So is that money you made off the back of it? Is that 30 grand?
30 grand on that one video for ad rev over the last few months. So it's about 10 grand a month on average, which is, you know, not to be sniffed at, but the money that came from having all of the ecosystem of products in the back end, which really follows on nicely from what we've been talking about across this whole series of putting all those processes in place and building those ecosystems. Is having that in place that's allowed us to really, really maximize the lifetime value of all the customers. Yeah. And I know we were talking about it, and you've started looking at yours a bit more. I'm looking at ours, definitely, all of our products across the board. Yeah. I think it's cool if we just share like a conversation of you know, what we're working on, what's going through our head, what our philosophies are around that whole piece.
But yeah, I think the first thing to do is just for anyone who doesn't know what you've actually done, because it's pretty remarkable. I mean, it's gone from like a standing start to making almost $1 million a month, right? £650,000 a month.
About 650.
One funnel, basically.
Exactly. We're about one video. We're about 2.2 million up now. 2.4 million up now. So it's crazy.
And I remember when I spoke to you about it, you were like, it's quite hard to believe. It's quite hard to kind of understand really and process it, because you're waking up each morning and it's like, there's another 30 grand just there, boom, in the account. Then the next day the same again, the next day the same again. And then it's because you had this whole thing built in the back end, and then on the front end you just tweak things as you went. Do you want to just walk us through exactly what you've made and how it's kind of come to light, all of this?
Yeah. So the what's come to light is basically low barrier to entry with a great back end system, right? Which means, how can I get out to as many people with as low risk as possible so that most people who I can reach want to, like, it's very easy for them to get a taste. And then how can I extend my back end offers to them and make it really easy for them to kind of go up this ramp of buying a product, then the next product kind of thing. And I was talking about this on the weekend when we had an event, and I gave the example of income equals outcome, and I gave the example of like famous footballers who I think I used Rafa Nadal actually, and I said Rafa Nadal in 2021 earned $50 million, $42 million, right? And nurses in COVID, they earned around $43,000 if you take a UK nurse converted to dollars. Which is about 1,000 times more. Rafa Nadal's earning 1,000 times more. And a lot of people say, well, he doesn't make as big a difference as a nurse, right? Which on a unit by unit basis might be true, because he can't save someone's life, for instance, he hits a ball. But when you talk about income and outcome on a kind of elementary level of energy and, units, it's basically how many people you can have an impact on multiplied by the impact that you can make, right? So it's literally, how can I reach as many people as possible with a low barrier to entry and make an impact? This is a quick shout out to the sponsor of this show, Shield, who help us deliver this podcast along with all the social media that goes with it to help us get it out to more people, which leaves us to focus on just creating more great conversations. If you want to start, delegate, or optimize your social media or podcast, or if you want to build your very own online course or program, get in touch with the team at shieldglobal.io on as many people as possible. Yeah. And you do that. So like, everyone who rocks up to Wimbledon tennis and the Australian Open and all the rest of it, there's 50 million people watching the guy who have all paid like pay-per-view, paid for a seat, tens of thousands of dollars. Whereas a nurse, you can't scale like that. There's no low barrier to entry. So when you look at it like that, you start to realize, okay, well, what I need to do is create a low barrier entry that it makes it very easy for anyone to get on board and get a taste. And then also have a big back end of a suite of products that are tailored to each person depending on where they're at in what direction they want to go in. So Apple's a great example. I think we've used Apple before, but when you think about Apple, right, they had the iTunes and they made that free to everyone and PC users, and then they did a little iPod Shuffle. But when you buy the iPod Shuffle for like 80 quid or whatever, you then want the iPad, and then you want the Mac, and then I'd love to know the lifetime value of Mac users. Like, how much have you spent on Macs? Right? It's tens of thousands of pounds we've spent at Apple, like in this office, over the years. I'd love to know what the average lifetime value of an Apple customer is, but that's it. It's having that ecosystem, the Apple TV, then the Macs, then the subscription model of together media and music.
It doesn't link so easily with the Samsung or whatever, does it? It's like, the ecosystem so perfectly linking together that you kind of, it's a no-brainer to get the laptop that links with the phone, which links with the iPad, which links with the, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So that's really what we've kind of been building over the years. And just because we created this video where people would have to spend a lot of time with me, so it's 2.5 hours long of pure fast-paced education where they had to keep up. There was no fluff. It was continuous learning for 2.5 hours, where people had to watch to the end and rewatch it and rewatch it and rewatch it, and obviously that triggered the YouTube algorithm. It took about, I launched that in October, and then it was when I came to Dubai, April, May time was when it really triggered. I remember we were sitting on the beach and it was going like, I was at 58,000 followers and it went 60, 70 in like 2 days. It just kept going. So that was great. But the thing is, we made so much money because we had all of that back end. We had a low barrier to entry. Then a call to action for a £300 little entry level course. And then after that, it was the next thing for an average upsell of about $899. And then the next thing and the next thing, and then the subscription model. So, it just kind of, people almost sold themselves up the whole ramp. There's no friction. There's no big 10 grand sales conversations going on and energy being expended over, come on, who's the decision maker? Let's get you over the thing and chasing up and follow up. It was literally, it is so passive. It's very, very passive. So it's been remarkable to watch. And we've certainly learned a lot about now refining each of our products and making low barriers on every angle. And then, creating this nice smooth ramp for people to just walk up themselves rather than us having to sell as much.
So if you had to, looking at the last few months, I got so many questions for you, man, but looking at the last few months specifically, what have been your 3 biggest lessons that you've learned just from that experience?
Oh, lessons that I've learned. One of the biggest things that have come to light is our member of staff who was actually like the community manager who's actually making sales, filling up the calendar with calls and getting people into programs. Their calendar has now been filled with lower quality leads because YouTube have basically flooded. It felt like like floodgates had opened. Everyone floods in from all over the world. And all of a sudden you're getting lower quality leads because they don't know you very much. They're not really indoctrinated. They haven't really heard much.
That can be really costly and screw up your whole back end system. People don't realize that, right? They think the more leads are better, but actually if you're overwhelmed by poor quality leads, suddenly none of your team can work efficiently, right?
And that is another important point of having this ecosystem of products built, because if we didn't have that, let's just say that Eleanor, for instance, was our one salesperson responsible for selling our programs and keeping the business afloat, right? Imagine that. And now all of a sudden her calendar's filled up with low quality leads asking silly questions. We're not making any sales. That could go downhill very, very quickly for a lot of companies. Whereas where we had that, now she's making less sales, but now the income's coming in for all of the systems we've built. And it's like, so it's like pushed people into the automations rather than the need for physical kind of manual calls and sales. So now what we've learned is actually we're not utilizing her time as efficiently as possible. We can now use her and the energy to upsell some of the bigger mentorship programs and things like that, like much higher ticket stuff where she can just focus all her energy on not getting people in the door and getting them on the first rung of the ladder, which basically what she was doing before. Now she can just focus on getting people the 15 grand sales, 10 grand sales, things like that, which is great. And that's.
But you've got to have a system to kind of. You've got to have a system to red carpet them to a point where they're having the best possible, high impact conversations with her, right?
Exactly. And the biggest lesson for us is we didn't have that in place. So now we're looking at building that, right? So otherwise she's pretty much, although she manages the community and does other things, her sales role is pretty much redundant at the moment. Yeah. So it's fascinating, really, really interesting. Another thing we've learned is there are people who will buy literally everything you sell. And I know we always know this, but there are certain people that if they buy one thing and the next thing and the next thing, there are degrees at which they become, a customer, a client, a fan, a raving fan, an ambassador, and then affiliate. So by tracking the people that buy everything, if you launch an affiliate program, you can just quickly see all those people that have bought everything you have to offer and just offer the affiliate program to them. And then they're more likely to go and preach and tell, rather than, put your energy and effort and money and resources into developing an extravagant affiliate program. Just offer it to the people that have bought all your stuff, because they're the ones that it's not going to cost you anything. And they're the ones that are likely to go and sell the most, because they don't even need you to train them on sales. They just swallowed the book, right? And they know everything about it. So that's something we learned, and we're launching an affiliate program off the back of that. So,
brilliant, man.
What else did I learn? YouTube is definitely not going anywhere.
Really?
And we need to spend more time on YouTube.
Yeah, it's crazy to watch it all, from a distance, so to speak. The what fascinates me is how you almost want to have this built up ready. The kind of the lessons I've learned from watching you, right, are you want to have this built up ready before you need it. You know, so that when you're focusing on all the front end video and content, you've got something online, digital that you can send people. If you are getting loads of loads of views, loads of attention, people need to go somewhere. Otherwise, you're just wasting it. Do you know what I mean? It's just all completely wasted.
Or if it's not quite ready either, or it doesn't work, or it's clunky, that'll be such a headache. Because if you have to manually intervene in certain bits of it, imagine that at scale. It's like
so anything, so much money. It's being aware of anything manual. So you're going through that testing phase. You're building something in the back end, going through it, and you're thinking anything manual here, we need to find a way of automating. And then it's like, okay, well, how much can you automate that, right? Like, you know, what's the most seamless way to automate that without that being an issue? And, you know, because some of these fiddly things like, you know, Google Sheets and Zapier and all this sort of stuff that people do use to automate can actually cause problems because they can get overwhelmed, they can slow down, they can have glitches, all this sort of stuff, right? So that's an interesting thing for me to think about. I also think this is all about leverage. Like I know we've done an episode on leverage before, actually quite recently. But for me, I've worked really hard over the last almost 15 years to build something physical, very in-person, physical, an incredible program to help kids and parents develop their character, which has transformed lots of lives. But I've realised now that we've got something that it works without me. It works very well without me. We've got a brilliant team who manage the whole thing, who are, you know, in tune with all the small changes they need to make, and even the innovation side they're now looking towards as well. And so everything is quite seamless. You know, you've got 60, 70 staff around the world, and we're in, you know, 4 or 5 countries and 3 continents, that sort of stuff, and thousands of customers, and it all works well without me. And so now I've realized I'm in a position where I can kind of double down on the online digital space, if you like, with a product or service, leveraging a lot of the stuff we've already got. We don't have the organic reach because we've relied heavily on paid ads. So everything we've done is kind of fueled by paid ads. Obviously there's referrals and that sort of stuff, but that's all local. So when it comes to global organic reach, we're lower. So, you know, on one hand, you could spend 5 to 10 years building it up organically. I know you've done that, right? So you've never really spent anything on ads, and you've built, over the last 6 to 8 years, built everything up organically. Whereas we've gone the opposite way. We've done loads of work on ads, but we've used that audience locally rather than globally. So now my whole mindset is, well, how can I leverage what we've got in terms of the team, in terms of the expertise, in terms of the tech, in terms of the manpower that we can put behind, you know, building something remarkable, as well as using AI now, which is, you know, the fundamentals of kind of building anything quickly.
And the reputation you've built in UAE.
Exactly. Yeah. And then leveraging the success stories, the transformations and the data, showing the before and afters, all this sort of stuff. Can we then use all that to build something digital? And so now I'm kind of in this place where I've seen what you've done, and I've seen what's out there, and I've seen what we've got to potentially leverage to now build something global and digital. But the way I see it is I'm not really expecting anything for 3 years. So I'm expecting just to like play around with this thing and perfect the system behind the scenes. Obviously use ads and paid ads to try and build it up, but ultimately get it to a point where it's like this thing works perfectly, and you know, when that time comes where it does get lots of attention, it's like boom, ready to go, and it just the attention goes into this machine, and out the other side comes revenue, right?
Absolutely, that's the thing. I think a lot of people, as I said, like it's not, well, how can I do what you did? Well, it's basically that was one video that just went and popped off, but it was a result of having the stuff in the back end built that was the result of us actually having any benefit from it. Otherwise, it's great having a plaque on the wall or whatever, but it doesn't really pay for your dinner. So, you know, from most people's business standpoint, having a lot of views on YouTube doesn't really mean a lot. So what I would say is, kind of to summarize, you want to think about looking at your products, looking at how you can make it easier for someone to get a taste of what you do, and like, how can you scale that? How can you make it so simple and no brainer for someone? How can you make it accessible to everyone? And then what can you build to take them to the next step a little bit slowly and then slowly and then slowly, rather than just trying to get them in the door, sell them a free thing or a low ticket thing, and then sell them some big high ticket thing, right? The philosophy behind it in my head is, how can you make them sell themselves rather than you have to get involved? Because when you do that, that's much easier to automate. And going back to what you said about everything that there's a manual thing, you need to think about introducing an automatic thing. What I like to do is think about what automatic things that we can do that feel manual and personal. So you replace it with something that makes them feel that they're getting even more, but it's more automated, if that makes sense. It's like, how can you scale non-scalable things and get as close to those non-scalable things as possible, but at scale?
I think that piece of the puzzle is going to be a lot easier with AI, right?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, one of the things I'm looking at is I'm looking at everything that that we could do from a digital service point of view, and I'm like, well, when I look at how we help children specifically develop their character, it's like confidence is a big one, conduct, behavior, concentration, and then anti-bullying. These are kind of the 4 pillars that we use, to really make a big impact. So from my perspective, I'm going to work on that confidence aspect first, develop this online course for confidence that just makes a massive difference. And then once we've done that, it's like we've got something that works, we've got a system that works. Now we can do the conduct one, then we can do the concentration, then we can do the anti-bullying. And so if you imagine all the attention that we get for all the stuff that we're trying to promote and the things that we're trying to talk about filters down into a very specific course. Do you want to improve your child's focus and concentration? Or is your child going through bullying? Or are they lacking confidence? Well, here's a 30-day challenge specifically for each thing. And then what's quite cool about that is, there'll be a big warm-up phase where we've got something like 30 to 40 specific testimonials for each of those pain points already, as in video testimonials. We've got data from 3,000 or 4,000 parents, which shows the improvement on average in confidence in 1 year is 81%, right? So, things like this, we can start to say, well, over the next 3 months, we can start to warm people up specifically to that 30-day, confidence challenge. Can we improve your child's confidence in 30 days? Well, this 30-day challenge is designed for you to do that with a self-assessment that you fill in before and after. And I think that would be quite a cool way of looking at it. But what excites me is that, a lot of people look at what you might have done and they'll be like, okay, cool. That's just a kind of fluke viral thing that just happened. But when you really get to know you, it's like you've poured so much of your heart and soul and mind and attention for, 15 hours a day for the last 6 years into perfecting, and you've got such an analytical mind. The way, from trading and all the stuff you do, it's like you look at this stuff and you're like, little tweak here, tiny tweak here, small tweak here. What's the knock-on effect of this, right? If this, then that. And just having that kind of process and train of thought has then evolved this product into something that works seamlessly. And I think that's the missing piece that a lot of people might have. I think a lot of people will build an online course, and that's just like one small aspect. Then you've got to build the attention to it. You've got to build the follow-up. You've got to build the warm-up. You've got to build the conversion. You've got to build the lifetime value. You've got to analyze each conversion stage and tweak things slowly. And that actually takes a long time. So I'm under no illusions that for me to build anything successful in the digital space, even with the leverage I've now got, would probably take 3 years. Yeah.
I think you made a great point there about mentioning a course. Look, no one wants a course is boring. A course is boring. What you need to do is package up an offer, a proper offer, filled with lots of little components that they can't compare to anywhere else. Because what that does is it helps the conversion. It helps you build that ramp. It's like, well, someone needs to explain, why this is different from so-and-so. Well, when you have an offer, you don't have to explain that. People can't confuse you with anyone else. It's like your 3 C's method, right? Well, what's 3 C's? No one else does the 3 C's. So, I don't need to look anywhere else. It makes it very easy for them to go, okay, I'm only moving forward with this guy because I've got all the value and trust there. He's telling me about this 3 C's process. I trust him. I'm going for that. So talking about tips on how to build some of this stuff. One, you mentioned testing and tweaking. Yes, absolutely test your offer. Do not launch anything without testing it and doing it to a beta group or a foundational group or whatever. Give them half price or do it for free or whatever. But we always test everything that we launch. The next thing is present it as an offer. So package in lots of niceties, lots of bits and pieces, and give unique processes a name. Like we've spoken about this before, but just give it a name, a process, your own process, so that they can't confuse it with anyone else. That's going to stop them hesitating. They'll just go straight forward with you. So that's what you want. And then build that value ramp. Have an ecosystem of products that allow people to just keep buying what you sell. And then when you track how many things they've bought, you've got your affiliates, which then become proper residual income for your business, because they're out there promote their free marketing. It's like it's amazing. And I feel like that's just where we're at now in this particular business after this long. So it's not like it's not overnight and it's not easy, but it is something well worth doing. Think about that one video, right? That one video, 2.4, let's just say 2 million, right? I could now have $100,000 a year lifestyle for 20 years off the back of that video, that took a week to create and a camera and a laptop. And when you look at it like that, that is just incredible, because I'll be 61.
Yeah, but it's like crazy. Picasso with the drawing on the back of the napkin analogy, right?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. Oh. So that's it, really. I think we've overrun a little bit, but we've shared quite a bit. So you guys, let us know if you've got any questions. Let us know if what you would add to this process, or if you've had any success on YouTube, what you've found, because I'm always looking to learn myself, and so Seb. So make sure you share in the comments any tips or tricks that you've found to help. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care. If you're enjoying these podcasts, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're really getting value from these, we'd really love it if you could let us know on our review page. We'll see you next week.